In this video I will show you something unique that could make a big impact, but in the end it almost caused bankruptcy for the inventor.
There's nothing we want to watch on TV tonight, but we're still going to watch something great with our RCA Videodisc player and video discs. Just flip a switch, and on our TV, we see Airplane or The Pink Panther, The Godfather or Grease, Muppets, Monsters, Mickey, MASH, and 100 more, starting as low as $15. And the player costs less than $500. Put it this way, we're watching a great movie, and you're watching us.
This is the CED, Capacitance electronic disc from RCA. In the US, just simply known as Videodisc. In 1897, Marconi founded the Wireless Telegraph and Signal Company in London, which was a pioneer in the new technology of radio and signal transmitting, based on Marconi's own inventions. He founded another company to use his patents on the American market in 1899, called Marconi Wireless Telegraph Company of America, American Marconi in short. The American Marconi's target was to buy the General Electric and Alexanderson's alternator, which was used by the Navy. In the end, President Wilson and naval officers intervened and GE acquired Marconi. In 1919, this new company was named RCA, Radio Corporation of America. The company expanded as radio became very popular and owned more and more patents. In 1932, due to anti-monopoly law, RCA was spun off from GE. At that time, they owned many radio stations, the NBC, Victor Company, as well as shops, record labels, and others. They also had many innovations in the field of television sets. The idea to own as many patents and innovations as possible and licensing them worked very well. So RCA became huge and powerful. Large number of inventors and engineers worked on the innovations. In 1959, somebody asked, if we have that huge capacity to produce vinyl records, why we are not using it for video too? This is a vinyl record. Everybody knows that. Small grooves are pressed into it, which are physically played back by the vibrations of the needle and converted into an electrical signal. Human hearing falls between the frequency of about 20 Hz to 20 kHz, which doesn't require excessive precision on the disc. But if we want to put a video on it, well, that's a problem. 20 kHz should be raised to around 5 MHz. This requires extremely small and precise grooves and high RPM. This is 250 times more data. The research began to solve this problem in 1964. Under the DiscPix project name. Was it worth the proceeding? Well, I guess yes. The magnetic tape recording was very new and rudimentary, extremely expensive, and it was obvious for them the programs would need to be recorded in runtime. And the goal was to sell the fast archive of RCA. But the development progressed too slowly. By 1972, it had reached 10 minutes capacity per side. That was a part of an episode from the show Get Smart. That was the point reached by Telefunken Decas format, called TED, by 1975. The television disc uses a flexible disc. There are 1500 rotations per minute, maximum 10 minutes recording time per side, and poor quality. It was only on the market for a short time in Germany. RCA tried to get supporters for their format in 1974, but during the presentation the system didn't work properly. Of all of the companies, only Matsushita showed some interest in the technology, so they bought the demonstration package for $3,000. RCA slowly got to the point where the plates had to be conductive coated with a silicone layer and where the dust was a huge enemy of the system. Since the discs were extremely fragile, they decided that, contrary to the plans, discs had to be placed in a closed case. They also experimented with the two-layer options, but it didn't work. They stayed with the PVC-based discs with carbon conductive layer and silicon coating. By 1981, the format became ready, called Selectavision. Seriously, by 1981, after 17 years, the project started. So yes, that was extremely slow, and by that time it became obvious the magnetic tapes are working and being marketed, Betamax in 1975 and VHS in 1976. Even so, guess who brought the VHS into the American market? Yes, it was RCA. Matsushita manufactured the units and RCA forced to extend the recording time to 4 hours. So why did the development take 17 years? RCA became too large and disorganized. They couldn't decide which ID to fund, so they ran 3 projects simultaneously. Holotape, by 1969, had a demonstration in color, mag tape, the magnetic tape recording, and disc pics. Due to the continuous change of management and because there was not enough money, the developments were stopped a number of times and then they were in it at a full stream. Interestingly, in 1978, GVC announced a new format that very similar to CED, called VHD, Video High Density. So they solved all of the problems of the system in 4 years, which RCA has failed to do for over 10 years. So the simplest solution was to steal back what they needed for the CED to make it work. Of course, there are differences, but the basic technology is the same. After a lot of delay, compromises and issues, in 1981 the CED Selectavision has been marketed. The first available title was The Race of Your Life, Charlie Brown, along with another 50. 15 months later they offered stereo and infraremote controlled versions as well. In the first year the plan was to sell 200,000 units, but they only achieved half of that. In the following years the sales improved, but it remained far below to the cassette systems. However, the devices only cost half as much as the VHS. The first player on the American market was the SGT-100.
You've read about it, you've heard about it. But until now, you've never had a better chance to own it. It's the RCA Videodisc player. The remarkable machine that plays records of movies, concerts, and more on your TV. And to help you be one of the first to own one, RCA is offering a $50 introductory bonus. Buy one now and you'll get $50 direct from RCA.
What's more, a special 10-day money-back offer is available at selected RCA dealers. But hurry,
You may never have a better chance.
The bandwidth became 3 MHz, 240 lines resolution, so pretty much VHS quality. For NTSC 450 RPM, for PAL 375 RPM. Every rotation contains 8 field, so 4 frames. The stylus only gently touches the surface of the disc. The small particles on the disc store a charge, and the needle also has a charge. The system monitors any change in charge difference. The disc diameter is 30 cm, spiral grooves are 657 nanometers wide and 19 km long per side. In theory, the stylus should work up to 8000 hours. The disc plays back 500 times. The capacity is enough to contain programs up to 60 minutes in NTSC or 75 minutes in PAL. But what happens if a feature film 125 minutes long? For PAL, that is not an issue. But in NTSC, in general, a second disc wasn't used, but a method called time compression. That meant the film was shortened in some places or dropped some frames or some parts ran faster. In the US, 2 disc packages were used sometimes, but not in Europe. During the disc manufacturing process, the master was a 1-inch tape. The player relatively simple compared to the magnetic recorders, but producing the discs are a lot more complicated than was planned. The VHD by 1982 was able to store digital data and work as a computer storage. These functions were planned to the CED2, but finally never marketed.
RCA Stereo Videodisc wants you to see the music. Anytime you want. It's music like you've never seen. Video like you've never heard. Buy an RCA Stereo Videodisc player now and get a 6-pack. A stereo music 6-pack of great video discs. $150 value, free. Featuring flash dance and more. RCA Videodisc.
It was introduced to the European market in 1983, but only for the British market, so the format became available in 3 countries, USA, Canada and the UK. The British models were basic, but in the US they were available with chapter selection, OSD menu and also smoother loading, but that caused it to become slower. The cases has a kind of color coding, in the Europe blue for stereo, white for mono. But it was mixed sometimes in the US. 4 companies, the RCA, Hitachi, Sanyo and Toshiba produced the players under 11 brand name. This is the Hitachi VP202 PAL European basic model. Stereo with RCA output, fast searching forward and backward, but no still image, as no memory inside. The needle was placed under this top door. When the disc inserted, keeps a part of the case with the disc inside. This frame helps for the player A or B side inserted.
RCA had high hopes for the video disc. RCA lost more than $500 million in 5 years on the ill-fated project, including a write-off of $175 million in this year's first quarter. It's not the first huge commercial failure for RCA. It pulled out of mainframe computers 13 years ago, following an after-tax loss of $250 million.
By the end of 1985, it was obvious the CED would never make profit, and the company would not be saved from the huge debt, so they announced the end of the player manufacturing. Discs were produced for another year. In 1986, General Electric acquired RCA again, and immediately stopped CED disc manufacturing. The last title which came on the market was the Jewel of the Nile. After this point, only one disc was produced, the Memoirs of Videodisc. That was for the employees as a memento of working on the project. 1,700 titles were produced in the US and 268 in the UK. So the CED was an epic fail. If by 1975 they had succeeded in launching it on the market by originally planned date, the home video market could have turned out in a completely different way. Even Betamax was launched in 1975, but only with a recording time of 1 hour and extremely expensive. But by 1981, when CD was finally marketed, it had already reached 3 hours recording time on Betamax and 4 hours for VHS. That was forced by RCA on the equipment that Matsushita manufactured for RCA. Also by 1981, Laservision became available from Philips.
think it's some kind of mock frog.
Mock frog? Use those artificial preservatives of added to the kind.
NASA agreed to limit the number of nuclear tests it plans in last to 200 after these.
The format is actually quite unreliable. It was not possible to play the same disc twice at the same quality. Jumps are very common, and also other playback issues are generally produced. Since the discs are fragile, dust and fingerprints can easily make them unwatchable. I do hope that it was more reliable when it was new.
You look like a person even with a camera on.
What RCA didn't count on was that it's also possible to record with video cassettes and that it would be possible to borrow them. Although each cassette was expensive, renting it could be very cheap. And home recordings could be deleted, so the device could be used for several functions. CED developed quite a serious collection of fans, mostly in the US. Thank you for watching, please click on the like button and sign up. See you next time.